love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here with...
Kim Shactman.
Kim, how are you doing today?
Good. I sound a little stuffy today, so don't mind me. I don't have a cold, but pretty runny nose. So.
Oh, that sucks.
Pardon the way I sound.
We just got snow down here. Did you guys get some snow up there?
Last night we got about 2 inches, and it's actually flurrying right now, so we will see. Hopefully it doesn't accumulate. We'll
see, okay. So we're here today to review the 2000 romantic drama Love and Basketball, starring Omar Epps and Sanaa Lathan, directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood. Kim, I was talking to you about this before we recorded, and I remember Love and Basketball from when I was in high school. And the most I remember about it is a certain subsect of people liked the film, mainly girls.
Right.
And then after that, I have not heard a damn thing about this movie since.
It was the same for me in high school. Like, I feel like it was, like, brought up for, like, a hot second, and then it was gone. Like,
right.
It just, like, disappeared.
And then 20 years later, it is the next time I heard about it, when the Criterion Collection decided to put it in its collection. Which surprised me, because I was like, wait a minute, how did this get in? Now, to be fair, the Criterion Collection was making an effort to put more black movies in there. That's why Eve's Bayou, Cooley High, Hollywood Shuffle got in there, which I think Eve's Bayou is a really good movie and deserved that. So I can't say about the other two, but I've heard really good things about those other two movies as well. But I was kind of surprised with this movie, because all I ever heard people talk about this is teenage girls who really liked this movie. So I was coming into
Omar Epps is pretty cute.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he is.
Right,
he's a cute guy.
Sure, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. We're going to go down that road. Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's why the girls liked it so much.
Probably.
Or some of the romance too.
I came in here thinking maybe I misjudged this movie, because I really never had an interest in seeing it, because it just seemed like just a standard romance. But after I saw it on the Criterion Collection, I was like, maybe I should give it a shot, which is what led me to choose this movie. So why don't we get into the review, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's get into the review of Love and Basketball, directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood. And before that, we'll get into the plot. It's a simple plot. The story is about Monica and Quincy. Monica, who's played by Sanaa Lathan, and Quincy, played by Omar Epps, from when they meet as children to when they become adults, and they develop a relationship that eventually gets romantic at a certain point. It goes from when they're kids to when they're in high school, college, and then adults. And it just turns into a romance of that sort throughout the entire movie. And that's basically it, right? Oh, and because it's with basketball, both of them are really good basketball players.
Like,
yeah.
You're missing half the title there, Wiz.
Yeah. That's true. And that's the twist of the movie, is that both of them are really good basketball players.
And they're really passionate about basketball.
Absolutely. And whereas Quincy is slated to be a NBA player, Monica is only set to be a good college player around that time, because the WNBA wasn't around at that time. So let's get into our 3 points. Kim, why don't we start with you?
I felt like the couple had some okay charisma together. Monica and Quincy, enough to pull off the romantic vibe. The film was pretty sexy, but not sexy in a grotesque or uncomfortable way, just sexy in a, this is my girl and this is my man and I'm going to make sure everybody knows it type way. There was physical intimacy, but you didn't actually really see it, which was nice. Like, I felt like it was like a nice type of sexy, if that's even a thing.
Yeah.
And, the romance was there, but it was pretty, like, standard. I wouldn't say it was over the top because of the basketball element with it, but I thought it was enough to make it a standard romance. Those are kind of like 3 points, but yeah.
Yeah. I agree with your first point. I think the romance is pretty standard. The couple is pretty charismatic. I think Sanaa Lathan is better in the movie than Omar Epps, but that also will dive into my second point. I agree with you on the sexy.
I think too she was better than he was as an actress in the film. But then I'm like, I wonder like who else would be good in Omar Epps' role in this. I mean, I'm also not as familiar with many like black actors besides like the typical like Denzel Washington or like the more popular ones. I mean, I think Omar did an okay job too. Like I said, like they had enough charisma to pull it off.
Yeah, I don't think he was bad. I just
Yeah.
think that Sanaa
She
Lathan...
stood out a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you on the sexiness part. I was a little surprised by what they do in the movie, especially since it's a PG-13 movie. But it's not, like you said, it's not like it's graphic or anything. It basically fits with
I think
what
it's
going.
tastefully done for what it is. And you told me right before we started recording that it was PG-13. And I was like, really? I thought this was rated R. Like,
No. No.
Just because, like, some of the things they say, too, in it.
But there's no nudity. I don't think they're that vulgar, so it kind of makes sense to me that it's PG-13 still.
Yeah, like, after we talked through it, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I agree. The couple is fairly charismatic, but I think Lathan is the better one in the movie. I also kind of agree with you. That's kind of standard stuff when it comes to the romance part. So what's your second point?
I felt that this was like a coming-of-age film meets the romance, but then meets basketball, and sprinkled in is a little bit of sexism when it comes to the basketball portion.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't catch that?
All right, explain what you think was the sexism sprinkled in.
I mean, throughout the movie, like, mostly the main character, because, again, it's kind of, like, female, centric in a way, but...
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the movie, the main character talks about how, like, being a male, like, in being on the basketball court, like, he can get away with way more than she could.
Sure.
And then also just the fact that, like, they don't even have a WNBA in the United States yet. Like, what? Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, because she had, overseas, they had a league for women.
Sure.
But they had nothing in the United States yet. I mean, that's sexism right there.
I mean, the film does point out that Monica does have a temper and gets out of control when she gets angry. So in that case, if you're going to say, like, her getting fouled for that technical, I would say that's probably because she has the reputation of having that problem. But that might be one thing. In regards to there not being a WNBA, I mean, we can really get into this if you really want, but... Like, I could just kind of see it, like, and then, like, the fact that, like, even in the romance parts, like he would blame her for things that she was, like, that she didn't even do wrong, but he just assumed it was because she was, like, female. I don't know, I just thought it was weird. Okay, I mean, I guess I can see where you're coming from there. I don't think it's sexism. I think it's a lack of maturity in Omar Epps' character. I think that's exactly what it is. Because in one point, he blames her for not being there when, in reality, it would have detrimented her to spend more time with him because of a curfew issue. And I think that's the main thing you're talking about, correct? Somewhat, yeah. I just feel like, too, like, in the film, they kind of, I mean, look at, like, his father and, like, what he went through with, his relationships and, like, kind of just taking advantage of women and then, right. Him kind of following in that path. Just I disagree with that. I don't think he was following in his path. If he was following in his path, he would have stayed with her and fooled around behind her back. He didn't. Well, he was starting to go down that road, and she, like, noticed it, and she was like, "Hold on a second." And she stood up for herself and was like, "What's going on?" Like, she called him out on it. Like, she didn't say anything. Like, would he have just kept doing it? Like, I don't know. Okay, I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't think, maybe with the exception of how people perceive women's basketball and men's basketball, which I also would say is not really that. I don't see the sexism part, but I kind of understand what you're talking about. Like, I really think that the things with Omar Epps' character is more of a lack of maturity than sexism. It's him going through some stuff and not realizing he's pushing his woman away. I don't think it's I'm a man, I can do it, because you're a woman, you have to put up with it. It's more along the lines of, I'm in a bad place right now, and I'm just acting out. I can see that, too. I can see that being more of the side of it, but I also see a little bit of underlining sexism there. And again, I didn't say that as in, like, oh my God, the whole movie is, like, sexist. Yeah. Like, not at all. Like, that's a very minor parts that I've seen in the film of, like, portraying that. But I can still see it. Like, I still see it in the basketball aspect, and then I still see a little bit in the romance portion. Okay. And then, like, even with, like, the mother, right? Like, her mother. And, like, being a housewife and, like, not that wasn't her choice, but, like, it's also, like, the time that the movie is also portraying, right? Like, because it goes from
the 80s to the 90s to, I think it just goes from what, the 80s to the 90s. Like it's like 81 to like 94 or something.
Yeah. I think one aspect of this film that they did not put enough time into, which I think they really should have, is how the main character essentially rejects femininity, and how if you speak to guys nowadays, and even back then too, they would always tell you that I don't want to date a bro. I don't want to date somebody who's into the things I'm into. Yet the main character, who is a very charismatic, likable, athletic person, is doing exactly that.
Right.
And that could have been something that could have been dived into further, but they didn't in this movie. Now, this could be part of the time. That's something we didn't really think about around those times, even though I think that's how most men thought around that
Right.
time. That could have been interesting to go through, because if there's one thing that the movie makes it apparent to, is that she rejects femininity, but when she doesn't, she pulls it off rather well. Of course, it's Sanaa Lathan. She's a very attractive woman, so that's not a surprise. But I think that's something that could have dived into further. Why is Omar Epps' character attracted to this person, even though he...
Because they grew up together.
Sure.
They trust each other. They know each other. They live next door.
Right.
They help each other throughout hard times when they're young, and then that trickles into when they're older. So, like, because if you think about it, the rest of her high school years and even into college, she didn't have any other boyfriends. She didn't seek them out. They didn't seek her out. The only time she had a date was when she was at some spring fling dance because her sister set her up.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I think that kind of shows, oh, nobody really wants to date her 'cause she's a tomboy.
I think that was more her rejecting dating than people don't want to date her. But then that's me speculating. They don't do anything in that movie to show that.
You're right. So you're right. They should have like maybe dove into it a little bit more.
Right.
Because that's just an assumption on my part too.
Yeah. I mean, that's an assumption on both of our parts, because they really do not show much when it comes to her and dating and being attracted to men and stuff like that. So my second point is I'm surprised it's centered around the female more than the male. Then again, maybe I shouldn't be so surprised, because this is a romantic film. Because honestly, if it were centered around the guy, it would pretty much be a movie about him fighting the temptation to lay everything that moves and sticking with the one girl that actually stuck by him. And that's kind of played out,
Which
too.
they touch upon that when they're in high school, because, like, what high school boy isn't like that? You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
well, I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in those times, like...
Especially when you're popular and you're an athlete.
Yeah, he's a popular athlete. Like, it's kind of a given. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I shouldn't be that surprised by that, because if it was centered more around the male, it would be a much different movie.
It wouldn't be as romantic.
No. But I do like that it's centered around the female character in this. And again, Sanaa Lathan, I think, did a good job with the character and centering the movie around her.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
It seemed like Omar Epps' character, Quincy, his station in life was never questioned. He was going to get what he was going to get. And it was her that was going through the struggle. So that makes sense that they did that in this movie. So I kind of liked and was surprised that they centered around it. Now that I'm
And I
thinking
kind of
about
liked how they did it, because I know, like, when we talk through this, I do too. Like, I kind of like how they showed that she was struggling, but he came from a household of wealth and, you know, who his father was and so forth. Like, so it makes sense to center it around her because it's a little bit more of a story, right?
Absolutely. What is your third point?
I'm surprised by the way now that we're talking this through, like, I am and I'm not surprised the way the film ended. Because throughout the film, like, even though it's technically centered around the female, which I do agree with that point that you just mentioned, throughout the film, though, they still review both main characters' careers. There's a point in the film where I guess you could just use it as an assumption that, like, there isn't anything more to talk about with the male's career, like Omar Epps' career. But I guess, like, I kind of wish, like, I knew. You know what I mean? Like, but maybe they left it open-ended just to keep it focused on the female.
Well, an ACL, if I recall the time, an ACL being broken is kind of like a death wish. It's like your career's done.
Like in basketball, which is what I figured. But like, oh, like, because you kind of still see him like trying to work out and like do other things. And I'm like, well, did he do anything? Like, does he train little kids? Does he,
Yeah.
is he a coach at a high school? Like, is he gonna like teach his, like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like they left it really open-ended with his career, but maybe they did that on purpose. I don't know.
Possibly. But I think that would also, since the film is more centered around Monica, I don't think it would have really done
mattered as much.
Yeah. Because I think when he gets injured, I think that's basically, that part's over. It's done.
Yeah, I think that's where they tried to kind of put the nail in the coffin for his, basketball career at that point, which, okay, I'll take that.
Sure. My third point is a pretty standard romance film, all said and done. As much as the film is good, it really does nothing to shake anything up. You can see parts of this film in numerous other films. There is the will they, won't they kind of romance angle. There is a bit of a Star is Born in this movie as well.
And like the girl next door, or the boy next door.
Sure, absolutely. There is a lot that is in other films in this movie, and it has enough to make it watchable, but it's not something that I think I would find memorable after I watch this. I honestly think after we're done, I'm probably going to forget I've watched this.
It's funny you say that, because I didn't think I had seen this movie, and as I was watching, I was like, I have seen this movie. I was like, I saw it years ago, and I just remember, like, when I saw it when I was younger, I was like, I didn't really care about it. Like, I was like, it's fine, but, and then I never thought about it again, and then we're watching it, and I was like, no, I've never seen this movie, and then I'm watching, I'm like, oh, yeah, I have seen this movie. But, yeah.
I think if I haven't, over the years, put in a log or a book of the movies I have seen, that I would have forgotten a lot of the films I have seen. But I can see myself, if I wasn't doing that, saying, I don't think I saw this film. And then 15 minutes in, I've seen this film.
Yeah, the problem is it's like kind of forgettable, unfortunately. It's obviously not trying to do that. I don't think any film tries to do that. It just kind of is.
It does a lot of what other romance films does already. So it has nothing that really differentiates itself. On that end, I think that's the reason why. If it's not any different than other romance films, you're going to forget about it at a certain point, because, it's kind of like this film and this film and this film and this film and this film, but it
then
does
they just all, like, interchange, and then you're just like, I don't... Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. All right, Kim, so who do you recommend this for?
I'd recommend it for people that like kind of a mix of romance and sports, but it's definitely more geared towards like heavier side on the romance part. I always think about it, like when I'm recommending films, I'm always like, would my husband watch this with me? And like, I think he would. Like, I think he'd watch it. He wasn't around when I was watching it this morning, so that's why. And then I also, maybe think people who enjoy seeing like a female flourish in like sports, and then like, a female underdog coming up within sports. I think, anyone that would enjoy a story like that would enjoy this film.
Okay. And who do you not recommend this for?
Those that enjoy romance films with like more heavy drama. This isn't one of those. Like you pointed out, it's more standard.
Okay, what do you mean exactly by heavy drama?
Well, whenever I think of like really heavy romances, maybe like older films where there's a woman and a man goes to war, and then they find each other again. Like, there's more like of a heavy dramatic portion to the story than just like, they play basketball and they met each other when they were young. You know what I mean?
Heavy in consequences.
Yes. Thank you. That's kind of more the wording I think I was going for.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said there. Okay.
Good call.
Okay.
What about you?
All right, so who do I recommend this for? I recommend this for people if you want a comfortable by-the-numbers romance. Hey, as much as I am not that type of person that wants everything by the numbers, some people do like comfort in their movies. They like to know what's going to happen so they can enjoy it, and they get comfort and joy from that. So if you want that, it's here. I also recommend this if you like the sports angle of the story. It's like the one thing that differentiates itself from, I would say, the more standard romance films. So... Yeah, I guess. And
like, again, like just by you saying the sports angle, like I think more men would be open to watching it maybe with a female, because they'd be like, oh, okay, there's a little bit of sports in here.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Like if you're a male that enjoys sports,
sure.
I guess.
Yeah. Who do I not recommend this for? I do not recommend this for people if you want something more than a standard romance formula. Again, this film just sticks it by the numbers. keeps it real comfortable. You kind of see what's going to happen throughout the entire film if you've seen enough of these films. If you're not into those things, first off, if you're not into romance, you're probably not going to watch it. But if you want something a little different with your formula, this is not going to be that movie. That would be who I don't recommend this for. All right, Kim, so overall, do you recommend this movie?
I do. I think it deserves a one-time watch from anyone that is interested. Will I watch it again? Probably not. It kept my interest enough for me to be like, okay, what's going to happen at the end? And that's a lot of times how I rate my movies too, is like if I'm watching it at the beginning or even halfway through and I'm like, oh God, like I don't even know if I'm going to be able to finish this. You know what I mean? But for this film, I was like, no, I want to see what happens. I want to see what happens to the characters and the story and yada yada. So yeah, I recommend it, at least for a one-time watch.
I'm going to also recommend it. I think that Sanaa Lathan kind of carries the film, and I think those parts of the films are what makes it a little more interesting. But again, it's a standard formula movie. It's something that if you are interested in it, you kind of know that you are. But it doesn't do anything different. It doesn't do anything that unique.
Nothing stands out.
No, nothing really does stand out in this movie. Again, I'm kind of surprised that it's suddenly getting love at 20 years later. Because I don't...
Yeah, this came out in 2000, right?
Yeah. I don't entirely understand why that is. I mean, there must be a certain group of people that really enjoy this movie. And I'm just...
Or didn't you say, too, like the director or something?
The director went on to do The Woman King last year, which a lot of people thought it was going to get Oscar nominations, and it turned out to get snubbed completely. That might be why
maybe they're resurrecting his films and they're like, yeah,
her
what
films.
about this one? Or her, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I didn't know it was a female director. Way to
Gina
go,
Price,
girl.
Gina Prince-Bythewood, you weren't sure that was a female? Really?
Oh, I forgot her name. Jesus. God damn.
Movie's so forgettable, you forget about the actors, directors, and the film. Okay.
No. Screw you. No, that's good for her.
No. But yeah, there are films that I have watched that I kind of understand why people like. This is one of them. And there's also films where I watch it and go, why do people like this? Like, I understand why people do like this.
Yeah.
I don't entirely understand why it's being resurrected and people are exclaiming its love for it 20 years later. Because honestly... And I said in the beginning, I haven't heard a thing about this movie for 20 years. And then suddenly it's starting to be talked about. And I'm like, why? Overall, I do recommend it. There are better films to watch, though. But if you really see it on, like, we watched it on Paramount Plus. If you're on Paramount Plus and you see it, it's like, why not? That's fine.
Yeah,
That's a good watch. So, yeah, overall recommend. You recommend as well?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we both recommend Love and Basketball.
Cool.
Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you like what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.